Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're looking at the real truth and the latest trends when it comes to senior driver licensing regulations. We're cutting through the noise to see what the laws actually say and what you really need to know before your next trip to the DMV. So let's just jump right in. If you're over 60 and you drive a car, you've probably seen the terrifying posts claiming the DMV is coming for your license this year. But before you panic, you need to hear this. Half of what you're reading is completely fake, but the other half could actually force you off the road. Here is the truth. All right, let's tackle that massive rumor right out of the gate and relieve some of that anxiety. You've probably seen claims about a sweeping federal mandate that forces annual driving tests for everyone over 70. Well, it is entirely false. There is absolutely no federal law dictating senior driving tests. And why is that? Because driver licensing is, and honestly always has been, controlled entirely by individual states, not the federal government. So you can officially breathe a sigh of relief and just ignore those clickbait warnings. Which brings us to our first section, state laws. We're going to look at the real rules out there and, believe it or not, some genuinely good news. Now, while the federal rumors are totally fake, there are real substantial changes happening at the state level right now, and I am thrilled to report that some of these changes are actually fantastic news for older drivers. Let's look at a brilliant update out of Illinois. Historically, Illinois has been pretty strict. They've required a mandatory road test the minute a driver hits 79. But effective July 1, 2026, a new law completely changes the game. They are bumping that mandatory road test age all the way up to 87. So, if you're a senior between the ages of 79 and 86 in Illinois, you are no longer going to face an automatic road test just to renew your license. Now, you will still need to pass a standard vision test, sure, but skipping that road test is a massive legislative shift. And California is easing up on its older drivers too. The Golden State has officially dropped the mandatory written knowledge test for drivers 70 and older during renewal. Now there is a small catch, as you might expect. You have to have a clean driving record without any serious violations to qualify. And while you do get to skip that written exam, you still have to make an in-person visit to the DMV and pass a vision screening. But overall, it's a much smoother, less stressful process.
So, let's zoom out to the broader national picture for a second. Because the requirements differ widely from state to state, it can honestly be pretty confusing. But if you just memorize these three numbers, 65, 70, and 75, you'll have a pretty solid grasp of the landscape. These are essentially the most common trigger ages where states start applying additional scrutiny or changing up the renewal rules for older drivers.
Let's break this down a bit more so you can see what I mean. It is wild how drastically the rules change, depending purely on your zip code. Take a look here. An Arizona driver hits their trigger at age 65, and suddenly they're facing in-person renewals and shorter license cycles. But then you look at states like California, Iowa, and Alaska, and they wait until ages 69 or 70 to trigger mandatory vision tests and in-person appearances. Meanwhile, states like Indiana, Massachusetts, New Mexico, and Virginia, they don't start implementing stricter requirements until you hit age 75. It is truly a patchwork system across the country.
And you know what? The variations don't even stop there. The crucial takeaway is that you really have to know your local nuances. For example, Texas and Illinois hold off on their major additional requirements until age 79. But then you have Nevada, which uses this unique two-step system. When you turn 65 in Nevada, your renewal cycle shrinks from every 8 years down to every 4 years. Then, once you hit 71, Nevada steps it up and requires a vision test at every single renewal. So, with all these wildly different regulations floating around, I want to give you a highly actionable takeaway for this explainer. Please, whatever you do, do not rely on random social media posts for your state's laws. Instead, head directly to the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety website. That's the IIHS. They maintain a fully updated, state-by-state database that tells you exactly what will be required of you based on your specific age and location. That's your real source of truth right there.
Okay, let's move into our next section, the hidden catch, mandatory doctor reporting. Remember right at the very beginning when I mentioned that half of the rumors out there could actually force you off the road? Well, this is it. It's a crucial, highly misunderstood, and honestly often completely unknown factor called mandatory doctor reporting. Let's define exactly what this means. Mandatory reporting is a legal obligation placed on your healthcare provider. It literally means that if your doctor diagnoses you with specific medical conditions that might impair your ability to drive safely, they are legally bound to notify the DMV. This isn't just an optional suggestion for them. It's the law in several states, including California, Delaware, Nevada, New Jersey, Oregon, and Pennsylvania.
So, what kind of conditions are we actually talking about here? Well, the primary triggers for these mandatory reports are diagnoses like dementia, severe sleep disorders, epilepsy, or significant vision impairment. If your doctor identifies these issues, the law in those specific states requires them to flag your file with the state's motor vehicle department.
Now, I know that sounds incredibly intimidating. It sounds scary, but don't panic. Here is how this actually works in practice. Step 1. A doctor, or even a concerned family member, because they can confidentially request a review too, reports a safety concern. Step 2. The DMV initiates an official review of your driving capabilities. Step 3. This might lead to potential further testing. Think along the lines of a road exam or a specialized medical evaluation. The absolute most important takeaway here is that a report does not mean an automatic suspension of your license. Not at all. It simply triggers an evaluation just to make sure you're still safe behind the wheel.
All right, let's wrap things up with Section 3. Action steps, Real ID, and insurance discounts.
I want to leave you empowered today with some highly practical and, frankly, money-saving pieces of information to keep in mind before you even step foot in the DMV for your next renewal. First up, we need to talk about the Real ID. We have been hearing about this for years and years, and the deadline was delayed multiple times. But it is finally passed as of May 7th, 2025. This means if you want to fly domestically within the United States, your standard driver's license just isn't going to cut it anymore. You have to ensure your updated license has that specific little star icon on it, which signifies it as a Real ID. If you don't have it, you're going to be forced to carry your actual passport just to board a domestic flight. So make sure you bring the required birth certificates or utility bills to the DMV to get this sorted out during your next renewal.
Finally, let's end this explainer on a fantastic high note. 5 to 15%. That is the amount of money you could literally be saving on your auto insurance premiums right now. How? By simply taking an approved defensive driving course designed specifically for seniors. Organizations like the AARP offer these courses all the time. They're incredibly informative, they're often available online so you can do them right from your couch, and completing one can legally entitle you to a significant discount on your car insurance. It is an absolute win-win for your safety on the road and your wallet.
So, I have to ask you, are you fully prepared for your next license renewal? We've covered the myths, the state-by-state realities, those mandatory medical reporting laws, and the crucial Real ID deadline. Knowledge really is power, especially when it comes to keeping your independence on the road. If you found this explainer helpful, please hit that like button, jump down into the comments and tell us what the specific rules are in your state, and definitely don't forget to subscribe so you never miss out on our deep dives. Stay safe on the road, and I'll see you in the next explainer.